There's something about group vacations that either brings people closer or rips them apart like Velcro soaked in kerosene. Ours started off leaning toward the former. 12 of us, 6 couples who thought they had things figured out, rented a massive villa overlooking the cliffs of Amalfi. I'm talking the kind of place that shows up in travel magazines with headlines like "Lose Yourself in Luxury" or "10 Places to Fall Back in Love." Irony would have a field day with that last one. My wife, Claire, had been buzzing about the trip for weeks. She picked out coordinated outfits, planned out excursions like a seasoned travel agent, and even downloaded Duolingo to practice saying "more wine, please" in Italian. I chalked it up to excitement. I thought, wow, she's really into this. Turns out, she was into something, or someone, else entirely. Now, Claire always had this thing for wanderlust. Not the romantic, sunset on the beach kind. The reckless kind. The kind that flirts with strangers and thinks shared Wi-Fi means shared secrets. But I didn't question it when she volunteered to handle the group itinerary. I didn't question it when she picked the villa. And I definitely didn't question it when she suggested we invite Luca, the private tour guide she'd found online. According to her, he came highly recommended. According to me, he came with biceps that had no business guiding anyone unless it was into temptation. The first time we met him was at the villa. Claire nearly dropped her spritz. Luca stepped out of his sleek little convertible like it was a perfume commercial. Tousled hair, tight shirt, accent that could talk a nun into breaking curfew. "Buongiorno," he said, and my wife's pupils dilated so fast I thought she'd developed a medical condition. Claire laughed too hard at his jokes. Touched his arm too often. And the others noticed. You always know when something's wrong, not by what people say, but by what they don't. The glances. The smirks. The silence that stretches just a second too long. Still, I told myself, don't be that guy. The jealous husband on vacation. Maybe she's just being friendly. Maybe. That first night we sat under string lights, the kind you see in wedding photos, with plates full of pasta and smiles full of wine. I watched her watch him. I saw her tuck her hair behind her ear when he spoke. I saw her lean closer than necessary when he poured the wine. And then came the line that would haunt me later. "I'm going to get some water," she said. "Be right back." It was 8:12 p.m. She came back at 11:15. Without water. Luca, oddly enough, was nowhere to be found either. I didn't say anything. I just looked at my watch, nodded, and sipped my drink. 3 hours late, no explanation, not a drop of water in sight. She sat back down like she'd gone out for a smoke and not, possibly, a moonlit betrayal. The other couples exchanged glances. One of them, Mark, bless his passive-aggressive soul, joked, "Must be some well water." Claire just smiled. "Yeah, long walk." "Oh, I bet it was." But I said nothing. Because in moments like that, silence speaks louder than accusations. And I was already starting to draft a different kind of itinerary. After the water walk, things changed. Not on the surface, Claire still smiled, still took selfies with the group, still clinked her wine glass like we were living inside a travel brochure. But underneath? The vibe at the villa shifted like the tide pulling something heavy out to sea. You ever notice how when someone's lying, they suddenly start overcompensating with affection? That was Claire now. Hugs that lingered too long. Questions like, "Do you need anything, babe?" delivered with the subtle panic of someone trying to bury a body with a teaspoon. Luca kept his distance the next day. Almost too much distance. He didn't even show up for the coastal hike he himself had suggested. Claire said he wasn't feeling well. I said nothing again. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's reconnaissance. But I wasn't the only one watching. Amber, one of the other wives, sharp as a tack and twice as blunt, pulled me aside while we were prepping dinner. "You doing okay?" she asked, too softly to be casual. I gave her the standard shrug. "Vacation's great." "Why?" She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. Because Claire looked like she was ready to follow Luca into international witness protection last night. I wanted to laugh. I really did. Instead, I just nodded. Noted. She patted my shoulder like she was confirming what she already knew. "Just keep your eyes open." And I did. That night we went out to a little local restaurant, family-style seating, candles, rustic bread you could build a house with. Claire sat beside me but angled toward the group like her body language was buffering someone else's signal. About halfway through dinner, Luca reappeared. He strolled in late, shirt just tight enough to be intentional, hair tousled like he wrestled a breeze and won. He smiled like he belonged there, like we were the guests and he was the host. Claire's face lit up like the Amalfi Coast at sunset. That smile right there? That was my warning shot. Not the first one, mind you. but the first one that didn't miss. I excused myself mid-meal, stepped out for air, and stood in the alley behind the restaurant, letting the distant chatter float through the open windows. I needed a minute to let it all settle. That's when I got the idea. See, everyone thinks revenge is some big, loud, messy explosion. But real revenge? It's patient, precise. It wears a smile, and it never, ever raises its voice. So I walked back in, kissed Claire on the cheek like I still bought the act, and poured myself another glass of wine. The rest of the table laughed, drank, and passed dishes. But me? I started planning my next move. There's a funny thing about lies. They always forget the details. The time, the excuse, the way they said they were getting just water. But truth? Truth remembers everything. I found her sandals first. Back at the villa, the next morning, I woke up early, too early for vacation, but just right for suspicion. Claire was still asleep, tangled in the sheets like guilt personified. I went downstairs for coffee, stepped outside to breathe, and there they were, her sandals, sitting next to the back patio door. They were wet, not just from dew. The straps were muddy, the soles slick with fine gravel and dirt that didn't come from the villa grounds. I followed the trail like a detective in a mystery no one else thought needed solving. Around the side of the house, through the garden path, down to a small gate that led to the cliffside walking path. The one we weren't supposed to use. It wasn't just muddy footprints that gave her away. It was the bracelet. Claire's bracelet. The one I gave her for our anniversary last year. White gold with a tiny sapphire charm, barely big enough to notice, unless you were me. And it was lying right there on the edge of the trail like it fell off in a hurry. Or during a struggle. Or worse, during something a little too passionate to be careful. I picked it up and stared at it. The path curved ahead and disappeared into the trees. I didn't follow it. I didn't need to. I already knew where it led. Back at the villa, everyone was still waking up. Except one person. Luca. No sign of him. No text in the group chat. No footprints in the gravel out front. Our car keys for the rental vans? All there. So unless the guy teleported to town or rode a Vespa powered by lies, I knew what that meant. Claire came downstairs an hour later, bright-eyed, wearing lipstick before noon. I poured her a cup of coffee and handed her the bracelet. Her fingers froze mid-reach. Found this by the cliff trail, I said calmly. Must have fallen off when you went to get water? She blinked. Yeah, must have. Funny, I said, how water makes jewelry fall off and shoes muddy. She didn't answer. Just sipped her coffee and stared out the window like the hills held the script she couldn't remember. I let it go. For the moment. Because timing is everything, and I wasn't about to waste my big reveal on a quiet kitchen. That evening, we had a group dinner on the villa terrace. The kind with soft music and too many candles. Someone made a toast. Someone else made pasta. Claire laughed too loud again. And me? I stood up and tapped my glass. Hey, I said, smiling. Quick story. You'll love this. Everyone turned. Claire froze. I was out for a walk this morning, and guess what I found? Claire's bracelet, out by the cliff trail. The one she walked last night, apparently. For water. Some chuckled. But here's the twist, Luca's shoes were there too. Muddy footprints. 2 sets, side by side, leading right to that little lookout spot. You know the one. Now the table was quiet. Claire's fork was halfway to her mouth. Luca wasn't there. Hadn't been seen all day. And then, I continued, our lovely guy disappears. No goodbye. No update. No invoice. I let the silence breathe for a beat. You'd almost think he found something more refreshing than water. Claire stood up so fast her chair skidded back. Logan, she whispered, my name tied in her throat. But I wasn't done. Oh, and fun fact, I added. I messaged Luca's boss. Turns out, he quit the tour company yesterday morning. Told them he was leaving the country with someone special. No names. Just vibes. Gasps. One of the girls dropped her wine glass. Claire's face was ghost white now. And me? I took a bite of bruschetta and said, bon appetit. You'd think after a public unmasking like that, she'd come clean. That she'd take the high road, or at least the honest one. But nope. Claire doubled down. After I laid out the footprints, the bracelet, the missing guide, and the poetic little twist about him leaving the country, she just stood there. Jaw tight, arms stiff at her sides like she was still trying to decide whether to cry, lie, or punch me in the throat. She chose none. She walked away. Full retreat. No apology, no denial, not even a dramatic exit line. Just a quiet shuffle back into the villa like someone heading into a courtroom they know they'll lose. The rest of the group sat in stunned silence. Amber looked at me like I'd just dropped a bomb. Mark, bless his naive soul, said, "Wait, are you serious?" And I wanted to hug him and say, "Buddy, no one makes this kind of story up just for the applause." Dinner ended early. The next morning, she was gone. No note. No text. No forwarded itinerary. Her suitcase packed. Her perfume missing. Her wedding ring left behind on the nightstand like a white flag dipped in cowardice. I walked into the room she'd abandoned and stood there for a long time. The air still smelled like her shampoo, lavender and dishonesty. I stared at that little gold ring for a solid minute before picking it up. It was warm from the sun, cold from the intent. That's when I laughed. Because that was it. That was her whole escape plan. Walk off the battlefield and hope no one writes the history. Too bad for her. I'm a better author than she gave me credit for. We had 3 days left in the villa. Everyone assumed I'd fly out early, lick my wounds in silence, maybe write a sad poem in an overpriced airport lounge. But I didn't leave. No, I stayed. Not because I needed closure, but because revenge, when served hot or cold, needs an audience. And I wasn't done with mine. The morning after Claire's Houdini act, I gathered the group for coffee. I kept it light. I told them I was fine, that I'd just be using the time to relax, maybe hike a little, maybe reread The Art of War. No one knew what to say, except Amber. She pulled me aside again later and asked, "Are you okay?" "Never better," I said, smiling too wide. She studied me for a second. "You're planning something." "I'm adjusting my itinerary." She chuckled. "Well, whatever it is, let me know if I need to film it." The revenge wasn't loud. That would have been too easy. No, I went for something cleaner. Something with layers. See, Claire didn't just run off with a tour guide. She left in the middle of a group trip, abandoned mutual friends, skipped her shared flight, and, most importantly, left her phone behind. That was her biggest mistake. Because I knew her iCloud password. She never changed it. Too many accounts tied to it. I had access to every photo, every calendar invite, every pin location she ever gave to Luca. I didn't go digging for intimacy. That wasn't the goal. What I was looking for was schedule. Because Luca hadn't taken her out of the country. He'd taken her to his cousin's guest house 2 towns over, in Ravello. She was still in Italy. And more importantly, she was posting again. On a burner account. Something dumb like at Wanderlust and Wine. Inspirational captions, blurry sunsets, and a photo of 2 wine glasses clinking over a sea view that didn't quite crop out Luca's reflection in the glass. Beautiful. Predictable. Trackable. I knew exactly where she was. So I made a call. To both our parents. At the same time. Speakerphone. It was a masterclass in civil tone and weaponized courtesy. "Hey folks," I said. "Just a heads up, Claire and I are taking some space." Turns out she had a little extracurricular sightseeing planned with our tour guide. Silence. Just wanted you both to hear it from me before she spins it into a Romeo-Juliet tragedy. My mom said nothing. I think she was afraid she'd curse in front of Claire's dad. Claire's mom started sobbing. Her dad said, "Wait, Luca the tour guide? Are you serious?" "Yeah. She left yesterday. Took her sandals, left her vows." The line went dead. I smiled. One move left. I waited until our last night at the villa. Sent her a message through the one app one knew she still had tied to the old phone, our shared trip planner. She used it religiously. It buzzed her wrist every time I updated something. I changed one line. Day 10 of farewell dinner at Trattoria Vesuvio. Dress nicely. Bring closure. I didn't expect her to show. Honestly, I figured she'd ignore it and stay holed up with Mr. Sunset shoulders and his artisanal chest hair. But she came. Oh, she came. Dressed in that crimson dress she always said was just for me. Hair done. Lipstick perfect. Eyes a little panicked. I was already seated at the table, glass of wine in hand. The others were there too. Not a trap. Just a witness table. She sat down across from me. "Logan," she started. "I don't need an apology," I said. I needed a moment. A moment for what? I reached into my jacket pocket and slid the ring across the table. Not hers. Mine. "Pawned yours this morning," I said. "Used it to prepay 3 months of a new apartment back home. I figure it's poetic. One ring to end it all." She looked like she wanted to say something meaningful. Something that would wrap this up in a bow. But I was already standing. This was never a tragedy, I told her. Just a travel brochure that lied. And then I left. Not rushed. Not angry. Just done. See, revenge isn't always fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's subtle, quiet, like the soft clink of a souvenir in your bag, the kind you don't realize you picked up until you're unpacking weeks later, wondering how something so small could weigh so much. Claire left Italy with more than just sun-kissed cheeks and Luca's cologne on her skin. She left with a problem. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind to the night I walked out of Trattoria Vesuvio, ringless, smiling, and very much not broken. That was the night she thought she'd seen the last of me. That I was just some sad, stoic guy she could write off as collateral damage in her little Mediterranean love story. What she didn't know, I had one more move, one more play. And it started the morning after the dinner, when I walked into the little internet cafe down by the marina with a plan and a manila envelope. Inside that envelope was every shred of evidence I'd collected over the last few days. Screenshots, GPS coordinates, photo metadata, timeline receipts, and a short, very polite letter written to Claire's employer, a boutique marketing firm back home where integrity, trust, and brand ethics were literally painted on the office walls. Turns out, she hadn't officially taken vacation time. Nope. She'd pulled some remote work stunt, lied about client meetings, even submitted fake expense reports for work dinners that were actually Pinot-fueled makeout sessions with our tour guide on borrowed balconies. And me? I had the receipts. I paid a courier 120 euros to overnight the packet to her boss with a sticky note that said, "Thought you'd want to verify where your star employee's been lately. Looks like she's been busy building someone else's brand." Petty? Maybe. Factual? Entirely. But I wasn't done. 3 days later, I was back in the States. My inbox had a single email from Claire. Subject: why are you doing this? No greeting. No apology. No explanation. Just a whimper dressed as a question. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because by then, the dominoes had already started falling. Claire lost her job. I know this because Amber, our mutual friend with a gossip radar more accurate than any missile defense system, texted me the news like she was delivering pizza. Claire got canned. Her LinkedIn now says, "Open to work. You're a savage. Also, I owe you a drink." But here's the real kicker. The souvenir I mentioned? That wasn't the job loss. That wasn't even the public embarrassment. It was Luca. See, after our group dinner and her dramatic return, she didn't exactly waltz back into his arms with violins playing. Because Luca? He was gone. Not metaphorically. Literally. Fled. One-way ticket to Barcelona the same day she showed up at the restaurant. I know because I had alerts set on his name. See, once a man steals your wife with olive oil charm and discount cologne, you tend to keep tabs on him like a hobby. Claire, heartbroken and unemployed, found herself stranded in a foreign country. No job, no lover, no reputation. And me? I was sipping coffee in my new apartment, the one I paid for with her pawned ring. But revenge is a strange currency. Even when it's earned, you have to be careful not to overdraw. So I stopped. Not because I forgave her, but because dragging it further would have made me bitter. And I didn't want to be bitter. I wanted to be done. That was my gift to myself. Hers? Well, 2 weeks after she returned to the States, I got a call. Blocked number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Logan. The voice was quiet. Familiar. Shaky. Claire. I need to ask something, she said. Shoot. Did you know? About Luca. About him. Leaving? I smiled. Not that she could see it. I had a feeling. Why didn't you tell me? Because you wouldn't have listened. And because, I paused, I wanted you to find out the way I did, alone. She was silent for a long time. Then, do you hate me? That one made me pause. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because it was such a simple, desperate question coming from someone who'd been so smug just weeks before. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. Relief flickered in her breath. I just don't care about you anymore. Click. I blocked the number. People ask me now, friends, coworkers, even a few bold family members, how I stayed so calm. How I managed not to go nuclear. How I didn't burn her to the ground. And I tell them the same thing every time. Because she wasn't worth the fire. See, revenge doesn't always have to end in a scorched earth. Sometimes, the cleanest revenge is absence. Making sure your name is the one echoing in their quiet moments. The one they see when they scroll through old photos they can't delete but can't look at. The one that reminds them what they lost. And Claire? She lost someone who loved her without conditions. I lost someone who only loved herself. I think I came out ahead. People always talk about the aftermath like it's this quiet place. Like once the storm's passed, the silence is supposed to be comforting. But let me tell you something. Silence after betrayal doesn't feel like peace. It feels like vacuum-sealed grief. For the first few weeks back home, everything echoed. The fridge door, the steps across the hardwood, even my own thoughts, bouncing off the walls of an apartment that didn't have Claire's coats in the closet or her mug in the dishwasher. She was gone. And I don't mean just physically. She was gone from my habits, my future plans, my routines. And the silence she left behind? It was deafening. But silence is funny. If you sit in it long enough, it starts whispering answers. I started rebuilding the same way you do after a tornado. You don't start with the roof. You start with the foundation. And my foundation? Me. Not who I was when she met me, that polished up, easygoing guy who made her breakfast and ignored red flags like they were part of the decor. No. I went back further. To who I was before her. The guy who didn't second-guess himself every time someone rolled their eyes. The guy who didn't feel small just because someone else wanted to feel big. So I made a list. Not of goals, not yet. Just of things I used to enjoy before we became everything. Hiking. Woodworking. Old-school rock records. Books that didn't end with a relationship. Steak. God, I miss steak. First step? I took a solo weekend trip to the mountains. Rented a cabin. Brought nothing but books, whiskey, and a Bluetooth speaker. I sat on the porch with the sun on my face and Miles Davis in my ears, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I'd almost given up. Myself. When I got back, I deleted her number. Not blocked, deleted. Blocking means you're still angry. Deleting means you've accepted the silence. And I kept going. I built a workbench in the garage of my new place. Started making things with my hands again, shelves, small tables, even a damn cutting board. Something about turning raw material into something useful felt poetic. Therapeutic. Therapy, by the way? I did that too. 6 sessions. That's how long it took for me to say out loud what I already knew deep down. It wasn't about me not being enough. It was about her needing more than she'd ever admit. The therapist didn't nod like they'd cracked a case. She just looked at me and said, "That's clarity." It was. Because the truth is, Claire didn't cheat on me because she found something better. She cheated because she thought she deserved more. More attention. More passion. More validation. And she thought someone else's novelty was worth more than my loyalty. Let her have it. Social media tried to pull me back into her orbit. Mutual friends posted updates. Claire had returned to Instagram under a new handle, subtle as a flaming billboard. At Claire on the rise. Cute. New selfies. New captions. The same hollow eyes. I didn't follow. But people sent me screenshots like they were mailing evidence to the prosecutor. Thought you'd want to see this. I didn't. Because I already knew what she was doing. She was doing damage control. For herself. For the image. Trying to polish the story she'd shattered. Make it sparkle for strangers who'd never know the difference between reinvention and remorse. But me? I wasn't trying to sparkle. I was trying to stand. A few months in, I got a text from her mom. "I just want you to know, not everyone is on our side. You were always too good for her. We knew it. She knows it. She just didn't want to admit it until it was too late." It was kind, honest, and sad. I thanked her, then blocked the number. Because I wasn't rebuilding my life so someone else could keep dragging pieces of hers through mine. And then came the shift. Not a dramatic one. No light beams from the heavens. No swelling music. Just one morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about her in days. Not her voice. Not her betrayal. Not her wine glass clinking against Lucas. Just nothing. And that silence? It didn't echo anymore. It felt like freedom. I started dating again. Cautiously, carefully. Not to fill a void, but to explore what healthy could feel like again. What laughter could sound like when it wasn't masking resentment. What love could look like when it wasn't a game of balancing someone else's ego on the tip of your own self-worth. And guess what? I found someone. Not someone to complete me. I was never missing pieces. But someone who matched me. In kindness. In humor. In values. She didn't ask me about Claire. Not because she didn't care, but because I didn't talk about Claire like I used to. She wasn't a scar I kept picking at. Just a healed-over mark on a road I don't drive down anymore. That's how I knew I was ready. Not because I forgave the past, but because I stopped living in it. The rebuild wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty. And it definitely wasn't quick. But it was real. Every plank of peace I laid down, I earned. Every smile that didn't feel forced, I built. Every night I fell asleep without bitterness in my chest. That was victory. Because revenge feels good for a moment. But rebuilding? That feels good for a lifetime. It was almost a year to the day. I was making lunch, turkey sandwich, chips, no fanfare, when I got a knock on the door. Not the dramatic kind. No banging. No desperation. Just soft. Almost guilty. I opened it. And there she was. Claire. Hair shorter. Eyes duller. Same smell. Different energy. She didn't say hello. She just said, I was in the area. I almost laughed. Like this was some kind of casual, friendly neighborhood drop-by and not a ghost showing up at her own crime scene. I've been thinking a lot, she said. Me too, I replied, keeping the door half closed. Mostly about lunch. She swallowed. Can I come in? No. Simple. Firm. Unapologetic. She blinked. I just want to talk. You should have done that before you left with your tour guide and a bottle of lies. Her face twisted. She wasn't used to this version of me, the one who wasn't flinching. The one who wasn't folding. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a decision. The mistake was thinking I'd still be here when you changed your mind. She stood there, searching my face for something warmth, regret, anything that might crack the wall I'd built brick by brick. But I didn't flinch. You seem different, she said finally. I am. And then I closed the door. And just like that, the ghost vanished. Word got around. Mutual friends whispered about her downfall like it was tabloid gossip. She was working freelance now, barely. Her social media had gone quiet. No more sunsets. No more Luca. Apparently, he dumped her in Spain after finding out she wasn't divorced, just temporarily emotionally unavailable. Classic Claire. She told one lie and expected it to buy her a future. Instead, it bought her a one-way ticket to being alone. Meanwhile, I was thriving. New place. New career chapter. New girl, and let me tell you, this one listens. We weren't rushing it. No declarations, no timelines. Just easy mornings, shared playlists, and real conversations that didn't feel like walking a tightrope over a pit of resentment. One night, while watching a movie on the couch, she asked me, "Do you ever think about her?" I didn't lie. Not really. And when I do, it's like remembering a movie I didn't finish. Bad plot. Terrible character arc. No sequel. She laughed. God, it felt good to make someone laugh again. Not because they pitied me, but because they actually enjoyed me. That was the real win. Not just surviving betrayal, but coming out better for it. Claire sent a letter a few months later. Handwritten. Sloppy penmanship. No return address. Inside, for pages of what-ifs, could-be beans, and paragraphs where the word sorry was stretched thinner than her alibis used to be. I didn't read it all. Didn't need to. I already knew the rhythm. Guilt, deflection, nostalgia, blame, repeat. But one line stood out. You were the only one who ever saw the real me. She was right. And that was exactly why I left. Because the real her, the one behind the charm, behind the curated image, behind the flattering lies, wasn't someone I could live beside without losing pieces of myself. And I liked who I was again. So I folded the letter, walked it outside, and dropped it in the trash without drama. That wasn't my story anymore. It's been 2 years now. People still ask sometimes, do you hate her? No, I don't hate anyone. But if I ever saw her again, standing at another door, carrying another apology, I wouldn't let her in. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm better. See, revenge is satisfying. But growth? That's something she'll never get to watch. She'll never see the man I became when I stopped trying to be enough for someone who was never ready for enough. She won't see the mornings I wake up with peace instead of anxiety. She won't hear the way someone else says my name, like it means something, not like it's just a label on a chore chart. She won't know the kind of love I get now. Quiet, steady, real. And that's the cruelest revenge of all. Not yelling, not burning down bridges. Just walking away from the ruins with my head high and my hands clean. She tried to break me, but I rebuilt myself with stronger parts. So if you're wondering how the story ends, it doesn't. Because the best part of moving on is realizing the chapter you thought was the climax was just the end of the prologue. The real story? That's mine now.